All right, curious mind, buckle up. We're diving deep into a topic that could unlock some, well, serious potential for muscle growth, especially if moving around isn't always easy. We're talking about taming myostatin.
Precisely. And you're keen to get the skinny on this quickly, right? That's exactly the mission here. Consider this your high-octane fuel injection of knowledge on the matter.
Exactly. We've got some fascinating research here suggesting that turning down the volume on this natural protein, myostatin, could be a real game changer for building and, keeping our skeletal muscles strong.
Yeah.
Now, if you're like me and the term protein signaling pathway make your eyes glaze over a bit, let me think of it like this. Imagine your muscles have a speed limit, something that stops them from bulking up too much.
Okay, I like that analogy. A speed limit.
Yeah, myostatin is that speed limit. It's a natural brake on muscle growth. And it's part of this big family of these signal-sending proteins called TGF. Sounds a bit sci-fi, I know, but the core idea is it's a message protein that tells muscles, okay, that's plenty of growth for you.
Bang on. And our little expedition today is all about exploring how we might just, ease off that brake pedal. We're focusing mainly on things you can actually find over the counter.
Right.
We're not ignoring the big pharma players. They definitely exist. But they bring their own complicated rule book, sort of.
Right.
We're really digging into the potential of these more natural approaches to give skeletal muscle a helping hand, particularly if hitting the gym is a challenge.
That makes sense.
We've sifted through studies looking at how beneficial it can be to gently persuade myostatin to, well, take a chill pill, especially when movement is restricted. And we've looked alongside investigations into various natural supplements and those more regulated pharmaceutical options. We're here to hand you the distilled wisdom, the key nuggets.
Okay, so this myostatin thing is putting the brakes on muscle. But let's get into the nitty-gritty. What exactly is it doing inside us? How does that brake work?
Right then. Myostatin doesn't just appear fully formed like some kind of, muscle-building bouncer saying, nope, not letting any more growth in here. It's synthesized as a bit of a project, you see. It starts off as a larger precursor protein.
Like an IKEA flat pack.
Exactly like that. Think of it as an unassembled flat pack piece of furniture. It has an initial signal sequence, like the delivery instructions on the box, then a propeptide region, and then the really crucial C-terminal domain.
Okay, C-terminal, that's the important bit.
That's where the magic, or rather the growth inhibition, happens. It teams up with an identical twin to form a dimer. That's the active version, like flipping two halves together.
Gotcha.
And its main gig is to negatively regulate skeletal muscle mass. Imagine a factory foreman saying, right, that's enough widgets for today. It does this by telling muscle cells to stop dividing and stop maturing.
Oh.
Specifically, it binds to these receptors on muscle cells called activin type IIB receptors. Think of them as the muscle cells' litter boxes.
Okay, the letterbox.
This binding then sets off a chain reaction inside the cell. It leads to an uptick in the production of proteins that actually dismantle muscle. We call them atrogenes.
Atrogenes, like atrocity.
Kind of. Think atrocity to growth genes. And at the same time, it causes a downtick in the production of proteins that build muscle myogenesis genes. Myo for muscle, chainogenesis for creation.
Wow, so it's like a double whammy, boosting the demolition crew and slowing down the construction crew.
Precisely. It's a coordinated attack on muscle growth.
So for someone whose movement is limited, like you mentioned before, this constant stop growing signal could be really problematic, couldn't it? It might actually speed up muscle loss.
Exactly. For individuals with limited mobility, the natural wear and tear on muscles can tip the scales towards breakdown rather than building.
Right.
So gently nudging myostatin out of the way in these scenarios, it could be a real lifeline.
A lifeline how?
For hanging on to muscle, maybe even building a bit more, which is absolutely key for staying independent, moving as much as possible, and just, well, feeling better overall. It's about rebalancing that muscle seesaw.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But you also mentioned myostatin isn't just chilling in our leg muscles or biceps.
Yeah.
Where else does it pop up, and why should we care about that?
Yes. The myostatin's social life isn't limited to the bicep beach party. While it's mostly found in skeletal muscle, the stuff that lets you do everything from typing to, chasing the cat.
Right.
It does make appearances in the heart muscle, cardiac tissue, and also in fat tissue, adipose tissue.
Heart and fat, too. Okay.
And this wider distribution means we need to be a bit strategic. Any plan to dial down myostatin ideally wants to be a sharpshooter, primarily targeting skeletal muscle. Well, we don't want to accidentally interfere with the heart's rhythm section or, other smooth muscles. For instance, and this is a bit of a curveball sometimes in heart failure, While myostatin might be elevated in the heart itself, it paradoxically contributes to muscles elsewhere in the body wasting away.
Wow, okay, so it's complicated. The whole system's interconnected.
Very much so. We need to tread carefully.
Okay, so we want to be like a brain surgeon with our myostatin maneuvers, hitting the right spot without any accidental poking. Now, let's talk about some of these natural helpers you mentioned, these over-the-counter options that might help us just sort of tap that brake. First up, epicatechin. Sounds like a potion ingredient.
It does have a rather enchanting quality to the name, doesn't it? Epicatechin is a rather marvelous flavonol. Think of it as a superhero molecule found in plants.
Where do we find it?
It's particularly abundant in delicious things like green tea and, yes, dark chocolate.
Dark chocolate. I like where this is going.
Huh. Its proposed method of action is rather cunning, actually. A two-pronged attack, if you will. Firstly, it seems to directly tell myostatin to calm down, reducing its levels.
Okay, direct action.
Secondly, and this is where it gets really interesting, it appears to encourage the production of something called follistatin.
Follistatin.
Now, follistatin is essentially myostatin's nemesis, its arch enemy. It binds to myostatin and basically renders it inactive, like a superhero's sidekick neutralizing the villain's powers.
So it's like having a dynamic duo working on our side. One tells myostatin to chill out, the other ties it up.
You got it. Pincer movement against the brake.
What does the evidence look like for this? Is it just theory?
No, we have some rather encouraging whispers from the scientific community. There was a 2013 study involving both mice and humans,
Okay.
and it showed that when epicatechin was added to the mix, myostatin levels took a dip, and markers associated with muscle growth started to rise.
Any real-world effects?
Interestingly, yes. The human participants in the study even showed improved hand grip strength, which is a nice tangible indicator, right?
Definitely.
And more recently, a 2021 study zoomed in on patients with Becker muscular dystrophy. That's a condition where muscles progressively weaken.
Right.
They found that a daily dose of 100 milligrams of epicatechin over a couple of months led to increased levels of dystrophin, which is a crucial muscle protein, and that nemesis, follistatin. And as you'd expect, myostatin levels took a tumble.
That sounds really promising, especially for those patients. What about side effects? You mentioned needing to be careful about the heart earlier.
Well, what's also rather heartwarming, you might say, is that epicatechin seems to have a bit of a protective charm for the heart.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's been shown to encourage the growth of new little blood vessels in the heart muscle, a process called myocardial angiogenesis.
Like the heart building its own little bypass system.
Exactly. So this suggests it's unlikely to cause cardiac mischief and might even be a bit of a boon for the ticker.
That's fascinating. A potential muscle builder that's also looking out for our heart.
Yeah.
Okay, what's our next natural contender? You mentioned quercetin. Sounds kind of like a move in a chess game.
Indeed. Quercetin is another flavonoid powerhouse, found in lots of vibrant fruits like apples, berries, and also in trusty vegetables like onions.
So, readily available stuff. How does it work on myostatin?
The scientific murmurings suggest that quercetin can also put the brakes on myostatin. This is primarily based on studies in cell cultures and animal models so far.
Lab stuff, mainly.
Mostly. But there was a particularly intriguing 2024 study that peered into the world of cultured meat production.
Lab-grown meat. Seriously.
Yes, you heard that right. They discovered that quercetin effectively inhibited myostatin. They even measured the binding energy, how snugly it latches on, which was pretty good. And this inhibition was linked to muscle stem cells getting their marching orders to differentiate and grow. Plus, another study in mice demonstrated that a specific form of quercetin could ward off muscle atrophy, muscle wasting, caused by a corticosteroid drug, specifically by keeping myostatin levels down.
So it's showing promise in lab-grown steaks and actual living beings. What about the heart with this one? Any potential bonus points there, like with epicatechin?
Yes, quercetin also seems to have a bit of a heroic streak when it comes to the heart. It's known for its ability to calm down inflammation and reduce oxidative stress.
Oxidative stress, like
Yeah.
rest in the body.
Good analogy. Think of it as mopping up damaging free radicals. Both inflammation and oxidative stress are major players in the heart disease drama. So by tackling these underlying villains, quercetin might indirectly contribute to a happier, healthier heart.
Fantastic. We're assembling quite the team here. Next up, the familiar face. Creatine. Everyone knows creatine for bulking up, right? What's its connection to myostatin?
Creatine, the old reliable. It's a well-established champion for boosting muscle mass and strength, absolutely. And it turns out it might have a sneaky role in keeping myostatin in check, too.
How so?
Well, a 2010 study revealed that when creatine joined forces with resistance training, myostatin levels in the bloodstream took a nosedive. And as expected, muscle mass went in the opposite direction, up.
Okay, so training plus creatine lowers myostatin.
Seems that way. And interestingly, a study in rats found that creatine supplementation actually quieted down the activity of genes related to myostatin.
So it might be working right at the genetic command center.
It suggests that, yes, influencing myostatin production itself.
And the heart. We know creatine is generally considered safe, but any specific thumbs up or thumbs down for cardiac health?
Generally speaking, creatine boasts a rather squeaky clean safety record, and yeah, that extends to the heart. In fact, some research even hints that it might lend a helping hand to individuals with heart failure by boosting their muscle strength and endurance.
Oh, interesting.
So it appears to be a pretty safe bet from a cardiovascular perspective.
That's reassuring. Okay, finally, let's shine a spotlight on leucine and essential amino acids. We know they're vital for building muscle, but how do they fit into this myostatin puzzle?
Right, leucine. It's a real VIP among the essential amino acids, those building blocks. Our bodies can't make themselves, so we have to get them from our diet.
The essential ones, got it.
Leucine plays a starring role in kicking off muscle protein synthesis. That's the crucial process of building and patching up our muscle tissue.
Okay, so it builds muscle directly, but the myostatin link.
Emerging research suggests that leucine might also have a word or two with myostatin. A 2020 study involving rats who had their limbs temporarily out of commission, sort of mimicking a lack of movement.
Like being bedridden.
Exactly. They discovered that leucine supplementation helped to bring the myostatin gene's activity back towards normal levels. It seemed to be mitigating the muscle atrophy.
Throwing a lifeline to the muscles.
Kind of, yeah. And furthermore, another study indicated that a combination of leucine, HMB, which is a byproduct of leucine and creatine, could prevent myostatin from telling muscle-building genes to go quiet.
So, for someone with limited mobility, making sure they're getting enough leucine could be doubly important then, both for directly encouraging muscle growth and potentially for keeping myostatin from causing too much trouble.
Precisely. It really underscores the importance of a diet that doesn't skimp on high-quality protein, especially sources rich in essential amino acids like our friend leucine. It could really help fend off muscle wasting when hitting the gym just isn't an option.
Okay, so these natural supplements, epicatectin, quercetin, creatine, leucine, they all sound like they have some potential, maybe working in slightly different ways. But what about those more direct pharmaceutical approaches you mentioned earlier? The monoclonal antibodies and things.
Ah, yes, the heavy artillery in the fight against myostatin. These represent a more targeted and, let's be honest, often more potent strategy.
More powerful, okay.
Things like monoclonal antibodies, names like stamilumab and domagrozumab, are designed to be like guided missiles. They specifically bind to myostatin and block its nefarious activity.
Guided missiles, I like that. And the other type?
Soluble receptors. They act more like decoys, intercepting myostatin in the bloodstream before it can even reach its targets on the muscle cells.
Clever. And these are mostly for specific conditions.
Primarily, yes. They're mainly being developed for conditions where muscle wasting is a really significant concern, things like muscular dystrophy.
But you also hinted earlier that these high-tech options haven't exactly been a walk in the park. What are the challenges?
Indeed. The journey of pharmaceutical myostatin inhibitors has definitely had its fair share of bumps in the road. Stamilumab, for instance, despite a lot of initial excitement, didn't quite deliver the goods in clinical trials, possibly due to it not sticking around in the body long enough to do its job properly, among other things. Domagrozumab has shown a more mixed bag of results in trials for Duchenne muscular dystrophy, with some outcomes looking more promising than others. It's not straightforward.
And are there side effect worries?
Yes, that's a key challenge with these more direct approaches, the potential for unintended side effects or off-target effects. Remember how myostatin is part of that big TGF superfamily?
Yeah, the family of signal senders.
Right. That family is involved in all sorts of bodily functions, including things like bone growth. So blocking myostatin too aggressively or maybe not precisely enough could potentially have unforeseen consequences. There have been concerns about an increased risk of bones becoming brittle, for example.
Oh, okay. So while they offer a more direct route, the precision needed to avoid those off-target effects is still kind of a work in progress.
You could definitely say that. It's a delicate balancing act.
Which brings us back to our natural allies. You mentioned they generally seem safe, potentially even offering some heart-healthy perks. But we need to keep it real, right?
Right.
Are there any safety considerations or potential downsides we should be aware of with these over-the-counter options? Even the natural stuff isn't always risk-free.
Absolutely. That's a crucial point. While the overall safety profile of these natural supplements appears rather robust based on the current evidence, it's vital to remember that everyone's biological terrain is a little different.
Especially people with health issues.
Exactly, especially for individuals navigating pre-existing health conditions or disabilities. What works fine for one person might not for another. So it's always prudent to have a chat with a healthcare professional before embarking on any new supplementation adventure.
Okay, let's drill down on some specifics then, starting with epicatchin from the dark chocolate and green tea. What do the studies suggest about its safety, and what kind of doses have been looked at?
Epicatechin has generally been a well-behaved guest in human studies. No significant party fouls reported at typical doses, let's say.
Hmm,
Research suggests that daily intakes in the ballpark of 100 to 300 milligrams seem to be safe for us humans.
okay. Any catches?
While some studies involving our rodent friends using very high doses have raised a cautionary flag regarding potential liver issues. So, moderation is definitely the name of the game. Don't go overboard, thinking more is always better.
Right, stick to reasonable amounts. Okay, what about quercetin? Any known hiccups there?
Quercetin also seems to have a pretty good track record when taken at the recommended amounts. Studies suggest that up to a gram a day, that's 1,000 milligrams for around 3 months, is generally well tolerated.
Any side effects at all?
Some folks might experience a mild headache or maybe a bit of tummy grumbling, especially if they push the dose higher. It's also worth keeping in mind that long-term use, like years and years, and its effects during pregnancy haven't been extensively studied, so caution is generally advised in those situations.
Standard caveats. And creatine. We hear so much about it. What are the key safety points there? Is the water weight thing real?
Creatine is one of the most thoroughly investigated supplements out there, period. And yes, long-term use at a typical maintenance dose of around 5 grams per day is considered safe for most people.
And the water weight.
Yes, some individuals might notice a slight increase on the scale initially, and that's usually due to water being pulled into the muscles. It's not fat gain. Occasionally, a bit of stomach upset has been reported, maybe if taken on an empty stomach.
And the heart concerns people used to mention.
Importantly, despite some lingering old wives' tales, there's no solid scientific evidence linking creatine to heart problems. And as we've discussed, it might even offer some cardiac benefits in certain contexts.
Good to clear that up. What about the loading phase?
Ah, yes. Some people use a loading phase, typically around 20 grams per day, split into doses, for 5 to 7 days to saturate the muscles quickly. That's also considered safe, followed by dropping down to the 5-gram maintenance dose.
Got it. Finally, leucine, the amino acid. Any safety notes for this essential building block?
Leucine is also generally considered a safe player when consumed within typical dietary or supplemental ranges. You often see it dosed around 2 to 5 grams per day in supplements.
Any issues?
Very high doses, much higher than that, might occasionally cause some gastrointestinal grumbles, maybe some stomach upset. But since it's often part of a team in essential amino acid, EAA, or branched chain amino acid, BCAA supplements, it's usually consumed as part of a broader, balanced spectrum of these building blocks, which is generally fine.
So the consistent message here, it seems, is that while these natural options appear generally safe, particularly at the study doses, individual reactions can vary. And that chat with a doctor or healthcare provider is absolutely crucial.
Non-negotiable, really.
Especially for folks with disabilities or existing health issues, right?
Yeah?
They need someone to keep an eye out for potential side effects and make sure these supplements are actually a good fit for their specific health picture.
Precisely. Personalized medical guidance is absolutely key. It ensures both safety and, frankly, that you're actually getting the benefit you're hoping for, rather than just, wasting money or taking unnecessary risks.
Now, this is interesting. Some of the research you've looked at even hints at potential suggested regimens, almost like a recipe for muscle support, using these things together. What are some of these ideas, and what's the thinking behind combining them? And we need to stress, this is hypothetical, right? Based on early research, not a current medical recommendation.
Correct. Absolutely hypothetical at this stage, based purely on piecing together the current puzzle pieces of evidence. Some researchers have put forward these potential combinations that could theoretically have a synergistic effect.
Like different instruments in an orchestra working together.
Nice one. Exactly. One such speculative idea involves a daily intake of maybe around 100 milligrams of epicatechin, perhaps 500 milligrams of quercetin, the standard 5 grams of creatine after loading, if you do that, and maybe 2 to 5 grams of leucine, possibly as part of a broader essential amino acid mix.
Okay, so that specific combo, what's the logic behind putting those particular ones together in those amounts?
The thinking is to try and attack the myostatin problem from multiple angles while also directly fueling muscle growth and supporting overall well-being.
So multi-pronged.
Right. Epicatechin and quercetin are in there for their potential to gently persuade myostatin to take a step back and also maybe encourage its antagonist, follistatin.
The double action one.
Exactly. Creatine is on board for its well-documented muscle energy and growth benefits, plus its own potential influence on myostatin we discuss.
The power source.
And leucine is the key ingredient for jump-starting that muscle protein synthesis, the actual building process.
The main builder.
The hope, the hypothesis, is that this combination could work together more effectively than any single ingredient to promote skeletal muscle growth. And crucially, perhaps harnessing the potential heart protective qualities of epicatechin and quercetin might help mitigate any theoretical concerns about affecting the cardiovascular system.
So the heart benefits could be an important part of the combo strategy too.
Potentially, yes. It's about looking at the whole picture.
And just to hammer this home one more time, this is a speculative idea based on research findings, not a prescription, not an endorsed medical plan currently.
Absolutely. Cannot stress that enough. Any such combination would need rigorous, dedicated scientific investigation in well-designed human trials to confirm its safety and its effectiveness before anyone could recommend it.
And monitoring would be key.
Oh, absolutely. For individuals, particularly those with disabilities or complex health situations, close monitoring by healthcare professionals would be utterly essential. Tracking heart function, muscle response, kidney function with creatine, any potential side effects, the works. These are exciting avenues for future research, but we need much more data before making any firm recommendations for combinations like this.
Okay, so as we start to wrap up this deep dive, what's the main takeaway for our listeners today, if they remember one thing?
I think the core message is that these natural supplements, things like epicatechin, quercetin, creatine, and leucine, are showing some really promising signs. They look like potential allies in promoting skeletal muscle growth, partly by gently nudging myostatin.
And especially relevant
for those who find traditional exercise difficult or impossible. The emerging evidence also suggests, quite encouragingly, that these particular supplements generally have a good safety profile and might even offer some bonus points for heart health.
But with that encouraging news comes a really important reminder, doesn't it?
Precisely. A huge reminder. While these findings are certainly exciting and they offer a glimpse into potential future strategies, the research is very much still unfolding. It's dynamic.
So the practical advice is?
The practical advice is it's absolutely paramount that anyone thinking about adding these supplements to their routine, especially if they have any existing health conditions or mobility issues, has a detailed, personalized conversation with their doctor or a qualified healthcare provider before making any changes. Full stop.
So as we look ahead at this whole landscape of muscle health and mobility, particularly for those facing limitations, it really sparks a fascinating question, I think. Given the potential of these natural compounds and the ongoing complexities and maybe risks of the pharmaceutical interventions, what future research pathways could best pave the way for safe and truly effective myostatin inhibiting strategies, specifically for the individuals who could benefit the most? It really gets you thinking about what's next, you know?
Indeed. It's a dynamic and incredibly important area of research. And your question perfectly captures that ongoing quest for knowledge and ultimately for better solutions that are both effective and safe. It's the key challenge. For those listeners keen to delve even deeper, exploring the actual research papers cited on epicatechin, quercetin, creatine, and leucine's interactions with myostatin would be an excellent starting point for your own intellectual deep dive.